Hello and welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're exploring something I find really fascinating. It's this intersection of podcasts and, well, learning English. I was really struck by how our source material for this deep dive talks about it almost like a shortcut, to getting fluent.
That's absolutely right. Our mission today really is to unpack that, to look at why podcasts seem to be such a powerful tool for learning English and, how you can actually use them effectively. We want to pull out the practical tips that can genuinely speed up your language journey, all based on the material we've gone through.
Exactly. We've really dug into this great source, Learning English from Podcasts, a beginner's guide. We've tried to pull out the absolute best bits, the real nuggets of wisdom, give you that shortcut so you're really up to speed on this. And what really comes across is how accessible it is and fun. The guide really hammers home that you can listen pretty much anytime, anywhere. Okay, so before we jump into the how-to, maybe we should back up a bit. The guide lays some groundwork first. Like, what is a podcast exactly in this context for learning?
Yeah, good question. It's fundamental, right? So basically, a podcast is kind of like a radio show you can listen to whenever you want people talking. But the key thing, especially for learners, is the sheer variety. Some are just for fun, some are educational, some tell stories, others give you the news, and the big plus, super easy to access on your phone, your computer.
Yeah.
And this is important, most of them are free, which makes it a really fair way to learn, doesn't it?
Totally. Free and accessible.
And that leads us to the really fascinating part, how the guide positions podcasts as having this unique edge for English learners, especially when you stack them up against maybe more traditional learning methods.
Right, I can see that. So based on the material, what's that single biggest advantage? What do podcasts offer that, say, a textbook might miss?
It really comes down to one phrase the guide uses: real English.
Real English.
Okay. Yeah. So unlike textbook language, which can sometimes be a bit structured, maybe even a little artificial, podcasts expose you to how people actually talk. You're not just getting vocabulary lists, you're hearing the natural sounds, the rhythm, the common phrases people use every day, even those little filler words, like or idioms that are just hard to learn from a book.
Ah, okay. So it's less about perfect grammar on paper and more about understanding and eventually using the language as it's actually, well, lived.
Exactly that, functional language. And something really helpful for beginners that the guide points out, many podcasts are actually made for learners.
Oh, yeah.
So they often speak more slowly, more clearly, and they might even stop and explain new words as they come up, which, raises a pretty interesting question. How does that authenticity really speed up learning compared to maybe the older, more rigid ways?
That idea of authenticity, it really clicks with a story mentioned in the source. It was someone's personal experience learning Spanish. They just started listening to Spanish podcasts every single day.
Right.
And, at first, they didn't understand much, which I think is probably pretty common.
Oh, definitely.
But what was amazing was how much better they got after just a few weeks, just from that consistent daily listening. It's easy to get downhearted when you don't get everything right away, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that daily grind, almost, that seemed to be the key.
That's such a great example.
Yeah.
And it really highlights a core principle from the guide. That feeling of difficulty at the start, totally normal, expected even. But, and this is the crucial part, listening consistently every day, even if it's just for a little while, it will lead to improvement. It just takes time.
Right.
The guide uses this analogy, which I think is brilliant. It's like exercise.
Oh, yeah.
You don't get strong going to the gym once a month for 5 hours.
Nope.
It's the daily, consistent effort, even short bursts, that builds real strength. Or, here, real understanding and fluency. So sticking with it, that perseverance, absolutely vital.
Okay, so we've got the why. It's authentic, it's accessible, and we know consistency is key, like exercise. So let's get practical. Let's dive into the actionable strategies the guide gives us for actually using podcasts effectively. What's tip number 1?
Right. The first big one they stress is that consistency we just talked about.
Right.
The advice is super simple. Just listen every day.
Every single day.
Every single day.
Yeah.
And the insight here isn't just about putting in hours. It's about the regularity. The source talks about this idea of micro-learning. Just 10 minutes a day can actually be way more effective than trying to cram in, say, an hour just once a week.
That makes sense. Little and often.
Exactly. It builds a habit. It lets the information sink in gradually. Better for memory, better for retention.
Okay, daily listening. Got it. And connected to that, the guide talks about not just passively listening, right? But actually engaging. Like the second tip is about repeating what you hear.
Yes. Active engagement. So the idea is you pause the podcast, and you actually say the words or sentences out loud. Repeat them.
Why is that so helpful?
Well, two big things. First, pronunciation. You're physically making the sounds yourself. And second, it massively boosts your speaking confidence. You're moving from just hearing the language to actually producing it. It's a big step.
Okay, that's a good one. Repeat what you hear. What's the third strategy?
The third one is all about vocabulary building, but in a very personal way. The guide suggests when you hear a new word in a podcast, write it down.
In like a notebook.
Yeah, exactly. Give a little vocabulary notebook. Then later on, you can look that word up in a dictionary.
Yeah.
Or maybe ask someone who knows. The guide actually says, make your own dictionary from podcast words.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, because then the words are tied to something you actually heard, a context you remember. It's not just a random list. Much stickier.
Much more relevant. Okay. Daily listening, repeating aloud, building a personal dictionary. What's number 4?
The fourth tip is about the power of repetition, but in a different way. Re-listening to episodes you've already heard.
Going back to the same one. Really?
Absolutely. It might sound counterintuitive, but the guide explains why it's so effective. They even give this kind of quantitative example. Like the first time you listen, maybe you only catch, say, 50% of it.
Right.
But listen again. That understanding could jump to maybe 80%.
Wow, that's a big leap.
It is. And it makes sense, doesn't it? Your brain already has a framework from the first listen. The second time, it starts filling in the gaps, noticing things you missed. It reinforces the learning. It's kind of like spaced repetition, but with whole chunks of audio. And as the guide points out, it just feels really good when you listen again and realize, hey, I understand more this time.
That satisfaction boost must be motivating, too.
Definitely.
Okay, so those are some solid individual strategies, but what about the context? The guide touches on learning alone versus maybe listening with friends. Is one better than the other?
That's an interesting point they raise. And the guide's take is, well, both are actually valuable. They just offer different things. Listening alone, that's great for deep focus. You know, quiet, no distractions. You can really hone in on the sounds, pause whenever you want.
Right, concentrated effort.
Exactly. But listening with friends, the guide frames that as potentially more fun, more motivating, perhaps.
Yeah, I can see that. What are the social benefits they mention?
Well, you can actually talk about the podcast episode afterwards. Ask each other questions like, hey, what did you understand from that part? Or what did that word mean again?
Ah, so it becomes interactive.
Totally. The guide suggests that can turn learning into this kind of fun, shared game almost. Less pressure, maybe more laughs.
Okay, so whether alone or with friends, the key is finding what works for you. Now, a really practical question for beginners. How do you choose the right podcast? There are so many out there.
Yeah, that's crucial. You don't want to jump into something super complex right away. The guide is clear. Beginners should look for podcasts that use simpler words and have a slower pace of speech.
Makes sense. Does he give any tips on how to find those?
It does. Some practical search advice, like literally search for terms like Easy English Podcast or Beginner English Podcast.
Okay.
And it also gives a shout out to YouTube. Don't forget YouTube. Searching there for English Podcast for beginners can bring up a lot of great visual and audio resources too.
Good tip. What about kids? Can they use podcasts too? Is that covered?
Yes, absolutely. The guide confirms there are tons of English podcasts made specifically for children.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they usually have simple stories, maybe songs, easy vocabulary. And importantly, the guide notes the voices are often really fun and friendly, which helps keep kids engaged.
Great. And for adults, does the guide mention any specific podcast examples?
It gives a couple, yeah, just as starting points, really. One is The English We Speak from the BBC.
Oh, I know that one. It's short, isn't it?
Exactly. Short, often fun, and it focuses on teaching new expressions or idioms. Another one mentioned is Speak English with ESL Pod. ESL is in English as a second language. That one's apparently very helpful specifically for building vocabulary.
Good examples.
But the main message from the guide is really explore. Try a few different ones. See what style clicks with you, what topics you find interesting. That's key to sticking with it.
Find your fit. Okay. Now, inevitably, learners hit roadblocks. The guide addresses that feeling, that common frustration when someone starts and just thinks, I don't understand anything, I feel totally lost. What advice does it offer then?
Yeah, that's such a common hurdle. And the first thing the guide does is just normalize it. It reassures you that feeling. It's normal. Honest, everyone feels that way at the beginning.
That's good to hear.
It is. And the most crucial piece of advice it gives, just keep listening. Don't stop.
Persevere, even when it feels impossible.
Especially then. The guide stresses it's okay if you don't understand every single word. Nobody does at first. The goal, especially early on, isn't perfect comprehension. It's just trying to get the main idea, the gist of it.
Catch the drift.
Exactly. Pick up what you can. Because, and this is the encouraging part, the guide reminds you, even when you feel lost, you are learning. Something new is getting in every single day.
Right. It's adding up, even if you don't notice it immediately.
Precisely. It's that cumulative effect. Trust the process.
Okay, that's really encouraging advice. So let's try and wrap this up. If we summarize the key takeaways from our deep dive today, we've really seen what a podcast is in this learning context, why it's so beneficial, that real English idea. And we've got those practical tips. Listen daily, repeat stuff out loud, write down new words, pick the right level podcast.
And don't be afraid to re-listen or feel lost at the start. Yeah, I think the core message from the guide is pretty clear. Podcasts are this amazing resource. They're free, they can be fun, and they're genuinely a powerful way to get better at English.
Definitely. And the final advice from the guide seems to be about integration, right? Making podcasts just a normal part of your day, like listen while you're walking or cooking or just chilling out. Just press play. Make it easy.
Absolutely. Seamless integration. And, if we kind of zoom out for a second, think about how powerful that simple habit can be. Integrating this small thing daily, it can fundamentally change your whole relationship with learning a language. Which makes you wonder, doesn't it? Beyond just learning English, what other parts of your life, what other goals could benefit from that same approach? That little and often consistent, incremental way of learning and growing. Something to think about.
That's a great final thought. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive today. We really hope you feel well-informed now and maybe even inspired to give podcasts a try for your own English learning journey.